Helen's story is really inspirational because it could happen to anybody. So she just heard an advertisement to say, we're looking for people to go into space. It could happen to absolutely any of us at any time.
So she applied, and after many adventures, she was eventually chosen to be the first Briton in space, and she flew to the Mir space station with the Russians in 1991.
I looked very carefully at how she actually got into becoming the astronaut, which looked as though it was on a whim, but actually what I know of Helen was that it may have been a whim to apply in the first place, but what happened next was not a whim. She was determined, and she was going to be determined to do it, and as she did in every way at school.
Well, one thing I'm really impressed with is not so much she went into space, but she got Arthur C. Clarke to write the foreword. Arthur C. Clarke's my favourite writer ever, so I'm very impressed she went into space, but I'm really jealous she got to meet Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, she was modest, and I think she really demonstrated how she felt very fortunate to be the one that was selected, and certainly didn't expect to be selected to be the one who would go up. But yes, she was modest at school as well. She was determined. She was one of those very quietly determined people, and you didn't quite realise for much of the time that she was there really, and she worked hard. She wanted to achieve, but there was no problem. I remember the one small problem that arose when she was in the sixth form, and it was to do with the way I think one of the teachers had treated her, and she came to me to make a complaint, and she was very determined about it, and I thought, good for you, and she was right. So yeah, a determined lady.
Most astronaut biographies, particularly the American pioneers, all read as if they'd been copied and pasted from the right stuff. You know, I was in the Air Force and I learned to fly and I was a test pilot and I became an astronaut. And they're all the same. This is different. She definitely wasn't a military pilot. She wasn't in the Air Force. She's a woman. There weren't many women astronauts before Helen. So a very different astronaut biography.
So in order to be an astronaut and go up into space, a lot of students believe that you have to have a certain background. So you have to have, for example, a military background. You have to be particularly good at flying, about instrumentation, and all the skills that Helen learnt here at Sheffield must be what set her up, must have given her the confidence to actually answer that call and to go up into space.
The one thing about Helen was that she was a team player. And that comes out in the book, that although she was in competition with the others, she was a part of a team, and she saw that as being very important. I remember her being exactly like that. She was a good team player.
Yeah, she was a very nice lady. She worked very hard. In our final year, we were all trying to find something to do afterwards. Postgraduate degree or get jobs. We were all trying to find a jobs, and Helen had been offered 7. I thought, well, this lady's going to go far, but I didn't know she was going to go up there.
So I think her skills that she learnt at Sheffield really helped her to get into space. So as an undergraduate chemist, you learn a wealth of transferable skills. You have to be really good at numeracy, really good at literacy, fantastic at problem solving, teamwork. There are so many things that you do on a daily basis. You don't even know that you're learning all these skills. And employers really value this. So doing a chemistry degree is such a valuable life skill to have, because you can use those skills for any walk of life.
Well, it shows that if you go into science, you don't have to wear a white coat and be in a lab all day. Being a scientist has lots of possible destinations.
So I found out that Helen had been part of the department, been part of the chemistry department when I started working here a few years ago. And I just find it amazing that she would have been in these labs. She would have been an undergraduate like all of our undergraduates are. She'll have probably been doing very similar experiments than what our undergraduates are experiencing now. And yeah, I hope that they find her incredibly inspirational.
She is really a product of Sheffield, and then of course she went through school in Sheffield, and then she went to University of Sheffield. So she is really a part of Sheffield.
She's done lots and lots of public engagement activities, and I think it's so great that she shares her passion and her love and her knowledge and all that wealth of experience that she's gathered from being in space and reflecting on that afterwards. I think it's fantastic. She
does go into schools and she shares her experience, and it's her mission. And one of the things that I will give her credit for, there have been many opportunities for her. She could well have had careers in other ways. She could have had careers in broadcasting, she could have had careers in other ways, but she decided that science education was the thing that really mattered, and she stuck by that. She's an enthusiast and they really love it because she gets in amongst them and talks to them and involves them. And I think, you know, she's learnt those skills over the years.
So I think what's really fantastic about Helen's story is the fact that she almost booked the trend. So being the first woman on the Mir space shuttle and then to be the first Briton in space, I just think there's so many firsts with Helen. So it's a fantastic opportunity to celebrate her. And also I think it's important for women to have a really positive female role model to look up to. So for a lot of chemical history was unfortunately written by men. And actually it's really important when we have somebody that has done so much that we celebrate them and we build them up and we shout about how great they are.